I knew that the Destiny 2 gameplay reveal on the 18th of May was going to be a pretty big deal, seeing how much the PR had been hyping it up in the days and even the weeks beforehand. But that the publisher and the developer would give up this much information all at once, that was something that I didn't see coming. Bungie really put their balls on the table with this one, showing what Destiny 2 is going to be all about. And that's a good sign. It shows that they're confident in their product, and it's a much needed breath of fresh air for me personally, seeing how the Division used to be very nitpicky about what information they released at which times prior to launch. So what do we do with all this information? Well, the thing that we sort of do best. We break it down and put it back together into a video to make sure that you did not miss a single thing. Let's begin! I'm only going to talk about the storyline very briefly, mainly because most people already know what this is about, seeing how they released a few cinematic trailers a few months back. The city, the tower, and the Traveler have all been hit by an attack by the Red Legion, and they have failed to defend themselves. The character Gal is the leader of this Red Legion, and after his victory, the Traveler supposedly stripped all the Guardians of their power and reset them back to light level 1. And the game actually starts off at this very moment. You have this cutscene of the Red Legion invading the city, which then transitions into gameplay right away. In this instance, you will notice that all the players still have their powers. In fact, everybody on the screen is level 20 here, and you get to slaughter through hordes and hordes of enemies. This is actually before the Traveler strips you of all your light. Personally, I think it's a very clever idea from Bungie to let players fight this fight in the beginning, not only to introduce them to all the gameplay mechanics really fast, but also to show them how powerful players can be at the end of their story. As I said, according to the story, you do end up losing this fight and all your power gets taken away right after this initial mission. No matter how you play it out, but seeing all these abilities in action, that will be a major motivator for a lot of players to keep playing more of Destiny and to get that power back. So yeah, pretty smart move there. It is after this initial mission that the world really opens up, or I should say worlds really. Destiny 2 will have 4 planets or places for players to play around on. Each will serve as their own instance of a semi-open world with a map that has objectives, side missions, loot, and a whole lot more going on for it. But we'll get into that soon. First, I just want to look at these playgrounds. We have Earth, we have Titan, we have Nessus, and we have Io. On Earth, you will mostly play in and around the area called the European Dead Zone. This is a place where a lot of the human survivors have come together, formed up a camp, and decided it was time to fight back instead of just running away. Bungie said that this is one of their largest areas that they've ever created. It beats everything twice-fold, so I'm guessing that there will be a lot to explore around here. Titan is one of the moons that orbits around Saturn and has nothing but liquid methane as a surface. According to the lore, humanity built these big buildings on top of the methane back in the Golden Age, and it reminds me a lot of those Metropolis type of fiction cities where those places would be floating in the sky, but instead of clouds you have liquid methane underneath you, though the idea is really the same. Nessus is a planetoid, and for which that don't know what that means, it's basically a massive space object that orbits around a sun or any other space object just like a planet. But it's not a planet. These things are usually a lot smaller than an actual planet, and in the case of Destiny 2, in the case with Nessus, this planetoid has been completely occupied by the Vex that you know from Destiny 1, and they transformed it into one of their machine worlds as a source of resources and power. Io is the last one on the list, and for what I've seen so far, this is my personal favorite. It just looks really good. Io is one of Jupiter's moons, and this is the last place that the Traveler has touched before it came to Earth. So the Traveler is of course that big ball that continues to float over Earth's last city, and the idea is that because it landed here before it went to Earth, this place is going to provide the players with a lot of answers regarding the Traveler, you know, a lot of lore. But yeah, with the European Dead Zone set to be the biggest open world area that Bungie has ever created, and with all these other planets around, it's promising to be pretty big, but size doesn't mean everything if the big open world doesn't have a lot of stuff in it to keep players busy. We need the right activities, we need enough stuff to do. Luckily, that's another big point that this review also touched upon. Besides patrols, ambient encounters, chests, loot, public events, the developers have also added a few things to these open worlds to give the players a little more to do. Most notably, you have adventures, treasure maps, and lost sectors. Adventures can be compared to side missions in other games. You meet these side characters that actually have dialogue and stuff like that, and they can ask you to do a few things for them, help them out, recover an item, or kill a few bad guys here and there, and in return, you will get some of those rewards. Treasure maps and lost sectors are basically exactly what they sound like. They lead to hidden dungeon-like areas that players can enter, where they will then have to fight a boss in order to get access to a chest that is tied to that location. And of course, the chest is going to give you more loot. However, what is probably at the top of my list is the main campaign. Now, I don't want to speculate too much, but from what we've seen so far, the storyline will have full cinematic cutscenes with characters that have tons of dialogue and missions that actually play like real big missions. After the last battle on Earth, the Vanguards, Kate 6, Zavala and Ikora Rey, they've all moved to a different planet. Zavala can be found on Titan, Kate 6 on Nessus, and Ikora went over to Io, and it seems that these three characters are at least part of the plot that Destiny 2 will offer, as they have their own missions and their own stuff to do on these planets, where of course you will have to assist them. The game will of course also introduce new strikes, new nightfalls, and it comes with a new raid right off the bat. However, of course they haven't really released much information about this yet. Except for this one strike that takes place on Nessus. Several YouTubers attending to the reveal have already released footage of this, so you can check that out somewhere on YouTube, I'm sure. I'll leave a link in the description to a few of these. As far as the actual gameplay mechanics go, it seems that not an awful lot has changed going from Destiny 1 to Destiny 2. Yeah, some of the weapon categories have been swapped around and players now have 3 basic abilities instead of 2, but it seems Destiny is still pretty much Destiny. Now, I'm not planning to go over every single individual weapon and item and ability spotted in all the gameplay combined. That would make the video way too long. Plus, we don't even have a name for many of these, and it would just end up being a mess. But what I do want to go over really quickly are the major changes for the mechanics. As I said, each player will still have 3 different weapon slots. However, how they function, it's been changed up a bit. We have 1 weapon slot for kinetic weapons, those weapons that fire actual bullets. We have 1 slot for energy weapons that holds weapons that, well, they shoot energy rounds of some sorts. And then we have the super weapon slot, which is basically a slot for a weapon that does the big damage. Fusion rifles, snipers, grenade launchers, even shotguns and rocket launchers, that kind of stuff. We've even seen a minigun and a sword. Those weapons, they go into the heavy weapon slot. Now this does indeed mean that if players want to use sniper rifles or shotguns in the Crucible, they will now be required to pick up heavy ammo for that weapon first, which in turn is going to make sniping and shotgunning and all that stuff a lot less common. Especially in a new game type, which we'll talk about soon, only 1 person gets a special ammo when he picks it up, so I'm not really sure how that's going to work out yet. All I know is that you're going to see those type of weapons a lot less often. Going to the gameplay from the first mission, you can see that, as I said, players also have 3 basic abilities instead of 2. That is of course besides their super, which as usual has a bar that you will have to fill before you can use it as well, just like in Destiny 1 and in The Division. The supers are pretty interesting because, as you probably expected, Destiny 2 will come with new subclasses, and that means new super abilities, and they've revealed 3 so far. We have the Dawnblade, the Sentinel, and the Arc Striker. The Dawnblade is that thing that you have seen in the gameplay demo where the player pulls out this flame sword and then starts flying above his enemies and then sends down a wave of fire forward every time that he swings his sword. The Sentinel made me think a lot about that Captain America because the player would get this round shield in front of him which can not only be used to tank incoming damage, but can also be used to punch enemies away or straight up kill them from a distance by throwing it towards your enemies. Last up there is the Arc Strider, which spawns this large staff and allows the player to slash his way through hordes of enemies as if you were playing a hack and slash game. To be honest, this does kind of feel like a fancy version of the already existing Arc Blade from Destiny 1, which I assume will also be returning in Destiny 2. But this at least allows hunters to fight with a stick instead of a blade. I'm pretty sure that the differences between those two will be cleared up when closer to launch. Now, as I said, these are most definitely not the only super abilities in the game. They've just added a few subclasses, and these supers come with those new subclasses. If you look through all the gameplay that YouTubers such as Dado, JackFrax, Unknown Player, and pretty much everybody else that went to the event have released, you will see that some known ones from Destiny 1 also return, such as the Golden Gun for the Gunslinger subclass and the Fists of Havoc for the Striker subclass. If you want to see all the details about these subclasses, then I can recommend some of Arekkz's recent videos. You probably know him, he also did a lot of Division, but he recently released 3 detailed videos about these subclasses with every ability in there. So, if you want to know more, go check those out, link in the description. Now, one of the most important selling points for me in any game has to be the player versus player multiplayer. I've said time and time again that PvP is what keeps any game alive, at least for me, in between the bigger content patches, and this is actually the area where I feel like we got the least amount of information during the event. All that was mentioned is that in Destiny 2, all the game modes will be 4 versus 4 orientated to appeal more to the competitive audience, and that there will be a new game mode coming to the Crucible called Countdown. Countdown can be compared to Search and Destroy from Call of Duty or Bomb in Counter-Strike. You have 2 places on the map where the attacking team can plant a bomb, and if they successfully do so, they win the round. There are limited respawns, and killing the entire team will also grant you a victory. It's pretty much the game mode that we've all played before on different games. 4v4 orientated games can be a very good thing for Destiny 2. I'm definitely not complaining here. However, I really do believe that there are also people on the opposite side of the fence that are maybe more laid back, more casual, and want to have a relaxed multiplayer experience that isn't always as competitive. And I think for those players, the big chaotic matches with 6 players on one team are a lot better. I appreciate that the developers choose to go for a more competitive environment, but I don't see the issue in having game modes and different playlists that allow for more than a 4v4. I wouldn't even mind an 8 versus 8 playlist. Big team battle on the Halo games was always good fun, but my guess is that for a game that large, special and bigger maps have to be created, and I cannot ask them to go that far. I'm just saying that maybe they should consider keeping the 6 versus 6 playlist somewhere on the same maps, and then make it a little more chaotic, maybe a little more fast-paced for the players that really enjoyed that. But we'll have to see where that goes. Several YouTubers attending to the event, for example SkillUp, have also spoken to several different developers on stage at the event and have confirmed that there will not be any dedicated servers for either the console or the PC, which I think is a big letdown. We also do not know yet if there will be skill-based ranks and matchmaking, or if there will be leaderboards of any kind. And I think that those type of features are pretty important if you want to make the game the tiniest bit of competitive and keep it a challenge even for the better half of the player base. Because that's the goal here, right? You want to create competitive multiplayer. That's the first reason why you created those 4v4 game types instead of 6 versus 6. Well, why not go all the way through and also add those ranks and the leaderboards to really keep people busy? Now, I am aware of the fact that one of the 2 expansions that is planned as part of the Season Pass revolves around competitive PvP, so if these features and if these things are not present at launch, then all hope is not necessarily lost. But having these features, having these ranks, these leaderboards, having dedicated servers in the base game, that would, in my opinion, be a whole lot better than asking everybody to pay extra money and potentially even splitting up the player base in half between those that buy the expansion and those that do not. Good matchmaking does not only come down to a good matchmaking system, but it also comes down to the population. And if you split that in half, then you split the matchmaking experience in half. Not exactly, but you get what I'm saying. What I was very happy with though is the clan system and the matchmaking that comes along with it that goes by the name as guided games. When I say clans, you're probably picturing a ton of people all having the same type of tag, the same type of symbol next to their name, a bunch of people that pretty much always play together and want to show that to the other players in the game. And Destiny 2 is offering all the support for players to do something like that, the whole package. You can make a custom tag, a custom banner, custom emblems, and it comes with the in-game navigation to find clanmates who are online and stuff like that. But, and this is also something that I haven't really seen other games doing before, they've also used this clan system to improve the life for the solo players, and they did that through guided games. You see, they've implemented this system where if a clan doesn't have enough players online to complete, for example, a raid, and they're a man short, they can queue into guided games. Then, any solo player that queues in there alone gets a full list of every clan that is still short a man or two, and then he gets to pick who he wants to join. This way the clan can get easy filler players if they're just looking to grind some content, and the solo player can experience the content that requires more than one player. It seems like a win-win on both ends, if it all works out at least. The last thing that I also quickly want to mention is that the PC version is announced to be available exclusively through Battle.net, Blizzard's game client, which was very surprising to see. I don't necessarily think this is a good thing. I don't think monopolies are ever a good thing on any market, but that's a topic for another time. I just wanted to share that that's going to happen for now. Some other PC related news also came up on a few websites, I'll leave a link in the description below. It's mostly positive because it says that Destiny 2 on PC will have full 4K support, it will run at an uncapped frame rate, It will have text chat, adjustable field of view, detailed graphic settings, and pretty much everything that you would expect from a AAA shooter coming to the PC platform in 2017. What worries me a lot though is the following. According to a representative from Bungie, there is actually no confirmed date set for the PC version of Destiny 2. They're saying that the PC version is much different from the consoles and thus they cannot guarantee that they will come out at the same time. Now I really hope that we can have a simultaneous launch for all platforms together, as waiting for an extra month, week, or even just a few days just because you bought the game on PC, that is one way to drive away the hardcore player base on PC from day one. It would be a shame, I really hope it pulls through on time. Anyway, I think that's all that I gotta say for now. In the upcoming weeks I'll be sure to post more Destiny 2 content, both news and further breakdowns of separate topics and aspects of the game, just like I did with the Division pre-launch. There's still a lot to go over, so stick around if you dig that sort of stuff, and don't if you don't. Anyway, as always, I will see you guys later, or like they say in the Netherlands, zie je later.